Welcome to a new episode of Good Morning UX.
Yes,
So we are here again.
yes,
So yeah.
as soon as was possible, I suppose.
As soon as possible,
No, but in this case, in the past, as soon as was
as
possible,
soon.
we brought other good conversation without focus on just on designers. We have
Oh
today a
yeah,
very good conversation with a product person.
yeah.
Product
We are
person.
not far from design. We are
No, yeah,
there. Connect with design, with
yeah,
user experience, but we are
yeah,
bringing someone that the focus on is in product,
yeah.
right? And product
Yeah,
matter
yeah,
is from product. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
He's a
from product.
product person, a consultant, but it's a product person.
Yeah, and I think he will bring a lot of provocative things,
Yeah,
right?
we have a lot of topics to talk with him. Let's
Yeah,
do
we have
that.
a script here, but we will try to keep
Yeah,
our questions there. But I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah,
Everything could happen in the next time.
yeah, yeah. We already have been having been a good conversations this new
Yeah,
season.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
This is the third one. We have a lot of
For us, is the third one. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know for the audience, but we have I don't know more 5 or 4 conversations scheduled, and let's go, let's go.
So let's go. Let's call. Well,
Yeah,
but first, first things first. Subscribe the channel,
yeah,
like this video and the podcast, and share, please,
yeah,
on
yeah.
LinkedIn. So that's
Please,
it. Now I
it will
will call.
help us a lot.
Yeah, it will help. Yeah, yeah. So let's call our guest. Come on, Matt. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation. Have you here? It's a great honor for us. It's amazing.
I'm happy to be here.
Um,
You're too kind.
oh no, no. So before we start our conversation here, can you
Okay.
introduce yourself to your Brazilian audience who may not know you, please?
Sure. So my name is Matt LeMay. I'm a product leader and consultant and author. I've written a couple books about product management and agile. I was a professional musician a million years ago and still dabble when I have the opportunity. I live in London right now, and I'm working on my next book, which is very exciting and very exhausting, but mostly very exciting. And I'm really excited to talk to you today.
Oh, nice. So next book is coming. This is
Yeah, yeah.
good
Yes.
to know.
Maybe
Yeah.
maybe we can have some spoilers.
Oh, I'm happy to give you spoilers if you want them.
Yeah,
The,
please.
the the book the book is about impact first product teams,
Hmm.
and the idea is that product teams should be evaluating the business impact of the work that they plan to do before they figure out anything else. Because if teams do work the right way that does not actually have an impact for the business, then that's still going to be a failure for them and for the business. I think that we've gotten into a lot of very fiddly and largely useless conversations about what is the best way to do product development work, when in fact doing the right work is more important than doing the work the right way. And I see a lot of teams spending a lot of time arguing and fighting and expending their limited energy and resources over what is the right way to do this, when in fact the things they're working on are completely pointless. And even if they were to succeed wildly, would not do enough to add up to a successful business. So this is, my both of my books so far have been kind of exploring this more humanistic lens, and based on the consulting work I've been doing over the last couple of years, this is a much more business oriented, kind of tough love approach to acknowledging that this is work. We work for companies, and we're ultimately accountable for the success of those companies. And if we're not contributing to that success, we wind up in a very tenuous position.
Great.
Wow. Great, great. I think Buriti has a question about that.
No, just a comment, because
Yeah,
I think all the explanation was very good, because
yeah,
as you said, you have been working as a consultant for very much companies about that, seeing the work of product teams into these companies, and probably you have a lot of examples
Oh, yes.
to walking us through this right way to do things. Probably we have a lot of different right ways to do
Exactly.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the right way is the way that works, right? I mean, that's at the end of the day, if you're not paying attention, that was kind of the whole point of the Agile for Everybody book I wrote, is that if we're not actually paying attention to the outcomes of our ways of working, if we're not saying, does this make things better for our company, for our customers, for our colleagues, then there's no point in just doing something because we heard it's a better way to work. You never know what's going to happen until you actually do something. And it's been interesting for me, over the last, I've been consulting now for a decade, working with companies like Spotify and Google and Audible and a lot of smaller companies and bigger companies that are, less of these kind of famous digital first companies, but are trying to compete with those companies. And honestly, the most valuable thing I do now is just getting teams to a point of clarity on what success looks like. It's kind of amazing to me how many teams and companies I've worked with, where if you ask them, like, well, what does success look like in a month, in a quarter, in a year, you can't get a clear answer to that. You can get a very vague answer, or you can get an answer that consists of a 100-slide deck with like 500 OKRs in it, which is also not a clear answer. So just getting humans to commit to what reality-based outcomes look like is really, really, really difficult to do. And a lot of the work I've been doing is around just that, around creating kind of the facilitation and the space, and giving people some comfort to make those connections and say, okay, like, we're not going to get a perfect answer, because we can't, because the future is unpredictable and markets are complicated. But if I say, does success look like X, Y, or Z, we should be able to know which of those three is closest and most important to us, for example.
Yeah, I think this subject is very important, especially nowadays, because we are facing a huge challenge for not just for product managers, but designers too, because
Yeah.
the industry is a kind of I don't know if it's avoiding us, but they are complaining a lot about how the designers or product managers or even engineers, they are not connected with the outcome. They are not connected
Yep.
with the thing is really important for a company. And I think this subject is very important for this moment, because we need to change or to reframe our way to see what we do.
I absolutely agree with you. And I think beyond that, we as product teams, as product managers, as designers, we need to have a point of view on this before somebody asks us. When I work with people and they say, well, our boss just asked me to justify the existence of my team. And I'm like, that means you've already failed in a sense, because you should know why your team is important to the business before somebody asks you. When people are like, what's the ROI of UX, which is like one of my least favorite questions. It's like, well, the ROI is manifest in the products. Like, if the team is producing work that delivers for the business, then every member of the team is creating value. But if you don't have a point of view on that, if you can't get out ahead of that conversation, then you are going to be in a very negative and reactive space when you are asked to justify your existence. Or somebody's just going to look at your team on a budget and say, this team costs us $1 million a year. We have no idea what they're doing and why it's important. Get rid of them. I mean, that's the reality of working for a business. So I think the more that teams can own that reality, can speak to that reality, can have their own shared team level point of view on, here is why we matter, here is what we're contributing, and here's how that connects directly to the success of the business, that team is in a much more secure place than a team that is, as many teams I've worked with have, complaining about how they're being asked to estimate impact and they're being asked to do these things and people don't understand them and it's not fair. Like, I get that that's an unfortunate position to be in, but complaining about it makes it worse. Whereas having a point of view about it and saying like, okay, the reality is we do cost a lot of money to this business. And if this team is $1 million a year line item expense, and we get frustrated when somebody asks us as the team doing the work, what justifies our existence, and then we go off and on the other hand complain about how we're not empowered and we're not given outcomes, then like it's just not going to end well.
Yeah, definitely we are going to a wrong way and spend a lot of money and time, right? So, but in your view, how would you define this moment that we are in right now? How we will change the scenario? You brought a lot of things to help us to understand, but can you give more about that? Because we are so sad about this.
I think it's ultimately a good thing. I think that we've had what has felt like in some ways the luxury for the last however many years of capital flowing very freely, companies not worrying that much about the bottom line. And as a result, we've had the luxury of having a lot of very interesting conversations about what's the right way to develop product, what framework should we use, who owns what, the product manager or the UX designer or the engineers, all these conversations that are very like passionate, practice-based conversations about like what is the right way to do this, what is the way of doing this that feels just and right. We've had a lot of conversations about discovery, which I think is hugely valuable. That's been kind of one of the big points of conversation in both the design and the product communities for the last decade. But I think that at the end of the day, reality comes crashing back to us. I remember my first startup job. I showed up at the office. This was in New York, 15 years ago. And I'm like, how do we pay for all of this? We have all this really nice stuff, but we don't make any money. And they were like, we have venture capital, and at some point we'll figure something out and we'll make a ton of money. And then, however many years later, it's like, okay, we have to pivot. We have to become profitable. We have to do this. The investors want their money back. And it's like, well, but wasn't that always going to happen? Like at a certain point, if we work for a business, I have a lot of friends who work in sales and who work in marketing and who work in other functions. And for them, like, you ask somebody who I have a very close friend who works in wine sales, and she's like, yeah, if you're not selling wine, you're not going to keep your job because you're like, I have this really special method for selling wine. Like at the end of the day, your value to the business is the amount of sales you bring in. And everything else needs to be in service of that. And I feel like those of us in the product and design and engineering and like product teams have honestly always been like a little shady about that. We've kind of been like, oh, sales and marketing, like their work is so transactional. They're not doing like what we're doing. They're not like craftspeople, which I totally disagree with. I have a huge amount of respect for sales and marketing people. But I think at the end of the day, like we all work for a company. And if we don't contribute to the success of that company and that company goes out of business, we all lose our jobs. And we don't get to be like, oh, but like I did it the right way. It's not fair. Like whether you like it or not, your fate is tied to the fate of the company you're working with. And again, if you can accept that and own that and prioritize your efforts accordingly, my hope is that helps us do more meaningful work. My hope is also that kind of helps us have a little bit more work-life balance because we start to recognize that like we work for a company. It's not our entire personality. It's not our entire, life. It's one aspect. We are responsible for ensuring the success of that business to the best of our ability, but then we go home and do other stuff, play some drums, have a glass of wine, relax. So my hope is that like, I think we've hit an inflection point, which feels very bad. Because for a long time, things have worked and we've been able to do things a certain way. And now we're suddenly being told, no, that doesn't work. You can't do that anymore. But my hope is that we are transitioning to a place where our work is seen as one of many interconnected pieces of a successful business. And that both humbles and empowers us at the end of the day.
Wow, interesting points, right, Burichi?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
like something that you said right now. It's a transition point. Right now, it's a transition point. So we are right now, this is one of my questions. We are in a transition point, but it's very, very dangerous place, right? Because could be pivotal to some place that we are keeping our way in a wrong way or not. So it's hard to define, right?
Well, I mean, I think part of the challenge is that change requires change from everybody, right? And one of the issues I see is in the last 5 years or so, there's been a lot of conversation around empowered product teams and product teams being given free rein to pursue outcomes. But I think the thing that a lot of managers and a lot of leaders and folks haven't understood is that, if you read like Marty Kagan on this, one of the first things he says is an empowered team has support. They have a sense of what success looks like. They're given coaching. It's not just go make this money. It's like, hey, here's what the business needs from you. What do you need from the business? What answers do you need? What clarity do you need? What support do you need? And I think that one of the directions I can see this taking, and the idea, it's been interesting, like the idea of product teams being accountable for business impact is a pretty controversial idea in some senses. Like the idea that a team should be aware of something as high level as revenue or growth and working into these things, which are big, complicated, lagging indicators. But again, I think the question is, do we follow that sense of reality all the way down to like, these are things out of your control, so we're going to give you support and everybody in the company is going to do what they can? Or do we continue to apply some magical thinking and say, great, I'm just going to tell this product team to go make $1 billion and then they'll go do it? So in other words, do we recognize that as we work towards more complex, multifaceted, and interconnected business outcomes, we need to work in a way that is more focused, that is more interconnected, that depends less on kind of working the right way and working within our teams and more on doing what we need to do across the organization, including in positions of leadership, to actually set up teams to deliver those outcomes as best they can. And I worry that a lot of folks do not recognize the scale of change that is required, not just from product teams, but from product leadership and company leadership as well.
Buriti,
Yeah,
I know you have some questions.
No,
A lot of questions.
I think probably we will leave our script because this conversation is very,
Left
very
behind,
interesting.
right?
No, it's
Let's
very
left behind
interesting.
your script. Yeah,
No,
yeah.
I suppose it's very interesting because we are living this moment now. We are living this difficult to make people, professionals, understand what they need to do and why they are hired in their companies. Because the discussion about the quality or the right way to do things is important for our discipline. It's important because we need to deliver things in the best way, in the better way,
with quality,
with
right?
quality and other things.
Yeah.
But the CEO or the people who hire us usually or always need to deliver the outcome. The result is the only thing, the only important thing in their heads, in my opinion. And I don't know, for the past years, we kind of forget this a little. It's the design is very important, the process is very important, the interface is very important. Yes, but we have other side here. And I think it's very important because the survival of our profession depends on that, depends on this
totally
understanding.
Well, and I think, it's funny because I've worked with a lot of teams, especially teams doing kind of redesign work and things that are more, and I like, honestly, redesign is one of those words that's always a big red flag for me when a team is like, we're going to redesign this experience. I'm like, why? Towards what end?
All the experiences.
Yeah, exactly. And if you say like, oh, to make it good. I'm like, what does that mean? Is that the most important thing for you to work on right now? There are some experiences that are like not terribly well visually designed, but have good enough information architecture and are in a, important enough, high traffic enough space that like you can get by, and maybe there's something else to do. But also a thing I've told a lot of teams that I work with, they'll say, well, how are we supposed to know how important this is? And honestly, my answer most of the time is Google it. Like I was working with a team that was working on password resets a while ago. And they were like, well, how are we supposed to quantify the value of password resets? I was like, literally do a Google search for how many people reset password, or like password reset importance. And all these things come up where it's like, this many transactions are lost to e-commerce because of lost passwords. This percentage, 2/3 of all US workers reset their password at least once in the last 3 months. And then we can start to be like, okay, well, if we have a goal around customer satisfaction, we can tie it into that because we know that's important for this many people. And we can start to say, okay, if this number of users are doing it and it's this important to them and there's this much money on the line, then we think this is probably worth doing to this extent. It's a lot of Googling and guesswork. But again, we talk about impact estimation as estimation. You're not trying to get a perfect number. I often tell people, you want to get the order of magnitude right. You want to know if it's like 10, 100, or 1,000. But beyond that, I don't really care if it's 9, 10, or 11, because if we're prioritizing between something that's 10, something that's 100, something that's 1,000, something that's 10,000, like these decisions become a lot easier once you are actually doing the work as a team of making these connections and of trying to figure out, it's funny. I was talking to a friend of mine who I used to work with, and kind of walking her through what I've been talking about and thinking about. And she said, it's funny because what you're talking about is like a direct line between business impact and day-to-day decisions. And almost all product management discourse is in the middle. It's like strategy, discovery, scoping. She was like, you're kind of drawing a direct line between like money and vibes. I was like, yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing, is like, every time we make an abstraction, every time we say, well, this initiative will do this, and then we have this objective within the initiative, like every step produces risk, right? Every step there's an opportunity for us to be misaligned, or for something to change, or for something in the market to happen that we didn't predict. So again, I think like in this tenuous moment, so much of what's important is just for teams to think quickly and creatively, and rather than throwing up their hands and saying, well, we don't have enough data to say that, we don't know. It's like, of course we don't know, but we can kind of figure out what's the best case scenario, and is the best case scenario worth the expense of the best case scenario. We can figure out, if the team, I worked with a team a while ago that was responsible for kind of upgrading users from an old version of an experience to a new version of the experience. And the first question I asked them was, how many users by when? They did not like this question at first. They were like, we don't know, we can't say. And I'm like, well, you need to know, because how are you making decisions if you don't know? And they're like, well, we can't. I'm like, cool, let's get the chief product officer on a call and say, is it 100 users, 1,000 users, or 10,000 users? Like, let's just figure out which of, like, what order of magnitude is the right goal for us. And we talked it through, and we figured out 1,000 was the right place to go, because that got us on a course where the board would be happy. It got us on a course where the sunk cost wouldn't be too high. It got us to a point where we weren't onboarding so many people that we felt the risk was unacceptable. And the team was actually able to move forward and make decisions after that, because if they came to their product manager and said, oh, we want to build this, we think it'll get us 10 users, then the product manager said, 10 users isn't enough, we have to get 1,000. And if they said, well, this would be perfect for 10,000 users, then it was like, that might be more than we need right now. We're aiming for 1,000, which also means we need to have those conversations about which 1,000, why, who do we target, how do we segment this? Specificity up front is so important. And as a music person, I hate this, because my inclination is always to be like, we're going to make an awesome experience. We're going to make the numbers go up. We're going to make this number go up. But getting to that point of saying how much by when is so important.
The silence of the truth.
No. I have other comments and questions, but I think you can.
No, I'm thinking about that because it's a strong message that we are facing right now, right? I think it's a global situation that we are in, and it's amazing to capture your view about that. It's so provocative. So yeah, I am speechless right now because I'm thinking, this is the truth, guys.
How Matt? How do you think the professionals can reach this capability, this ability
To say the truth.
yeah, to discuss in this level, to bring this data, because when you are a designer, when you are a product person, you have some limitations, maybe,
Yeah.
but the limitations maybe are more inside of you, not in the environment. And how do you think we can, as professionals, reach that or win
Achieve
these limitations?
yeah, achieve this kind of level of
Yeah.
knowledge and skills to
Yeah.
go through and be provocative and see the real figures and stuff like that, right, Burichi?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'll tell you, like in my experience, the biggest issue is not a lack of skills. It's not a lack of knowledge. It's fear of being wrong. It's fear of being the first person to name a number. Like people, I've worked with so many teams where they're like, we want to be accountable for outcomes. And I'm like, okay, how much? What outcomes? And they're like, well, like it's scary. It's scary to have a conversation for a couple of reasons. I think number one, again, you don't want to get the number wrong, right? You don't want to have that conversation with your leader and say, like, we're going to be accountable for this much. And you are afraid that they're going to say, that's all wrong. That's terrible. I wanted more. I wanted less. Which is, again, why I think providing options is always a really good idea. That's something I coach folks to do a lot. I think the other thing, so, in the product world, we've been saying outcomes over output for like a decade now. And we've been talking about empowering teams around outcomes. But most teams I have worked with are actually really afraid of being accountable for outcomes because outcomes are beyond their control. If you are making your team accountable for something at a market level, for something like revenue or growth, you can't just do it. You can't just tick off a box and say, oh yeah, we did that. Whereas if you're accountable for output, if you're saying we're going to make this feature and make it really great, that actually feels much safer for most teams. Teams, complain about it, but it creates a sense of safety and control. So I think part of the challenge is to manage from a communication standpoint what it means to ask teams to be accountable for things they can't control. Because again, the reality at the end of the day is that we are all accountable to things beyond our control, right? The success of our business, which employs us, is always beyond any of our immediate control. That's the reality of the work that we do. And I think that when I've seen teams embrace this and acknowledge this in an honest way, it actually changes their dynamic for the better. And in a funny way, it makes them more user-centric as well. So this is the other thing I've been thinking about a lot. Because when I talk to people, they'll sometimes say, like, oh, you're talking about this in such a business-centric way. What about the user? And one of my hypotheses going into this, and I've seen this borne out in the work I do, is that if you make a team accountable for business level outcomes, for things that involve an exchange of value with users, then they have to be user-centric. And it changes the conversation, right? Because and I've worked with so many teams that say, like, we have to do discovery. We need more space to do discovery. And it's like, why? Whereas if you say, look, we're accountable for finding this many new users. If we don't go out there and talk to people about what they want, we do not have a chance in hell of ever accomplishing this, right? When you actually encourage teams to think about their work and their success at a business model level, at a level that involves an exchange of value, they need to do discovery, And they need to do it not because of some ideological abstract conversation about we're not doing enough discovery, we need to do more discovery, but rather because if we don't learn from our users, we will never achieve what our team has been tasked with achieving. And that's where I see some of these long-standing log jams in organizations actually get broken, where leaders who haven't seen the value in research, or who haven't seen the value in design, or who haven't seen the value in discovery, when teams can come to them and say, look, you want us to get this many people to pay this much money, we're not going to do that unless we go out and talk to those people. That's a much more understandable and accessible case for that work to be done, as opposed to saying, excuse me, big fancy boss, you don't know the right way to build products and we do, which is usually not going to be a great conversation.
Yeah. And come on, no one's care about that. It's in the company. Everyone is worried about the job, about the wage in the end of the month.
Yeah, we're trying to escape from layoffs right now.
Yeah, people don't want to get fired. And like, I get that. I get that. But on the other hand, like, if you can, so I'll share with you my favorite question that I've asked teams. In the book I'm working on, each chapter has a question at the beginning of the chapter. And the first question that I've asked a lot of teams I work with is, if you were in charge of this company, would you fund this team? And I love this question because it changes their thinking a little bit, right? A lot of teams are like, well, we're building this and it's good, and we're building that and it's good. And I'm like, okay, but if you were the boss of this company, if you were responsible for explaining money in and money out, would you fund this team and why? And it's been interesting. When I was working with a company a couple of years ago, I asked that question 3 times. Twice the answer was no. And both of those times, the teams reorganized themselves. They said, like, my job is in danger if I stay on this team, because this team is just not succeeding. Like, we're not having impact. We're going around and trying to pick off little things to do. But this is an expensive team full of talented individuals. And if we don't reconfigure our resources in a way that delivers a return for the business, we are in danger. And it was really interesting to see, one of those teams, they made a case for, like, I should join this team. They should join this team. They should join these teams. These are the teams that are having impact. We're really good. We can accelerate those teams. We can have more impact there. And that worked really well for them. Another team changed its remit. They were like, what this team has been tasked with is the wrong thing. We need to figure out another thing for us to do. Where can we have impact? And again, I think that when you can have that conversation, when you as a team can ask and answer these difficult questions yourselves, it puts you in such a stronger position than if people who don't know you, don't know your work, and don't really care about you are looking at you on a spreadsheet somewhere and saying, who are these people and why are we paying them?
The silence again. Matt.
No, yeah.
I think what you are bringing here, it's so connected with your book, Product Management in Practice.
Yeah.
Because it's a ton of reality, right? That you are pushing us. Oh, come on, let's see the truth. Let's work, guys, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think, Product Management in Practice was, I think, as with any book, is intended for the time it's written, right? And I think Product Management in Practice was really when, like, I saw that a lot of the theory of product management didn't align with the day-to-day work. That I had been told I was in charge of this, I was in charge of that, I was the CEO of this, and I was the CEO of that. But in reality, like, I was just doing a lot of facilitative work, which is fine. Like, facilitative work is really important and really valuable. But I thought I was doing a bad job. So, I honestly, for years, I just assumed I was really bad at this until I started talking to other product people and noticed that there were a lot of us who thought we were really bad at this because what we were doing wasn't what we thought we were supposed to be doing, even though what we were doing seemed really valuable and really important. So, for me, so much of why I like doing this work is to get people okay with reality, is to get people to acknowledge things that might be difficult to acknowledge, things that might be a little scary, things that might be a blow to their ego or might make them feel like, you know, there's a reason why in product management and practice, especially in the second edition, I talk a lot about how defensiveness is what kind of kills good product work. And in a funny way, I think that that's exactly what I'm talking about in this new book as well, which is by the time you are asked to justify your existence, you have not done a good enough job of justifying your existence. By the time you are put in this defensive position, you've already lost in a real way. Whereas if you can have a point of view on that, if you can look at the scary thing in the face and say, yeah, this is scary. This is hard. I'm responsible for things outside of my control. Whether or not we acknowledge it, that's the reality of doing work for an organization. So rather than pretending that's not the case, rather than pointing to other things and saying, no, look, I did a good job, let's own that. Let's really own that as a team, and let's prioritize the work that's going to be most meaningful to the business, because that's what we're here to do.
It's a kind of empowerment, right?
I think so. I think empowerment needs to be based in reality, right?
Yeah.
Because if you create an artificial structure to empower people within, then eventually that structure is going to fall apart. And honestly, I feel like that's been a lot of the last 10 years of product management, is that we've been like, we're giving you these like frameworks and these ways of working. And if you do, you know, that's like so much of the last 10 years of Agile is like, if you say these magic words and answer me these questions 3, then you are doing it right. And it's like, I don't know, is your business working? Like, I don't really care. Like, I don't care. I mean, this is part of why I don't do that much Agile stuff anymore, because I just got sick of having completely pointless conversations with people. I got sick of people being like, well, if you change the 3 questions, is it really Scrum? And I'm like, if a unicorn loses its horn, is it still a unicorn? I don't care. These are made up things. Like, people made this stuff up. Is it working or is it not working? I don't care. I don't want to waste any more of my life having these proxy conversations that are 2 or 3 steps removed from the things that actually matter. And again, I think the only path forward is for us as product professionals, as design professionals, as engineering professionals, to say, like, guess what? We are taking responsibility for this. We are directing the conversation. We are having a point of view about this. And, you know, that means we have to give up our special little island sometimes. But the special little island was never real to begin with. It was all an illusion. Still work for a business.
I love that. I hate agile again. Also.
Yeah. I think the most powerful sentence.
One of the most powerful.
No, yeah, I don't know, but I don't know. I can summarize our conversation with this last phrase, the last sentence.
Can you?
We are working for a business.
Yep.
Whoa.
Because I don't know. We forget that. We actually
totally forgot.
We professionals in general, especially designers, because we are designers and we can say that, but we forget that we are working for a company because money, because it's not just because we love that, because we have a passion, or of course we have, but
I love vacation.
Yeah, but it isn't the mainly motivation for these things, because
I see.
if it was just a passion, we could play guitars like math in our personal life, not in a professional way. For me, it's the most important thing. We are working for businesses.
You know, it's funny. I think one thing that really helped me get to there was working with folks at big businesses. Because coming from startup world, I think a lot of people are so identified with their jobs. They're so like, oh, I work for this company. I'm going to give it everything. Like, this is who I am. Whereas when I started working with people at like big companies in the States, they'd be like, oh yeah, I show up 9 to 5. I do as good a job as I can. And then I go home. and I live my life. And I, spend time with my family. I worked with one guy who had spent a bunch of time in Genoa and was like, oh, I learned how to cure meat. So like I have in my basement, I'm like curing Italian salami because I just fell in love with that. And I'm like, I think in a funny way, working for a company is a contractual agreement, right? Like you give work for the company and receive compensation. And in a way, I feel like once you acknowledge that what you're giving to the company is for the company, for their success, and what they're giving you, the compensation is for you, then hopefully it frees you up to articulate your passion in other parts of your life. I don't think that most companies deserve all of our passion, to be honest. Like, I don't think that most companies, it drives me crazy when I work with companies that are like, we want somebody who like wants to stay late and wants to, I'm like, then no, that's not, I care about people who do their job really well a lot more than I care about people who are like really passionate, to be honest. Like passionate, sure, but that's not, I don't hire someone to be passionate. I hire them to do a job. Like we're doing a job. And I don't think that means you can't find pleasure in doing your job. I don't think that means you can't bring artistry and craft and beauty to your job, but like it's your job. And if you acknowledge that, then hopefully that frees you up to also acknowledge that that has its limits, that you are providing labor in exchange for money, and that is a finite transaction in which you don't owe any more than you're being compensated for. But what you do owe is to try to contribute to the success of the business, because that's why you're there.
Yeah. I think you brought a very important thing, because like I said, passion is very important. But if you have just passion, probably you have difficult to be more pragmatic
and see reality, right?
And you need
you are
that.
Trying to cover the reality with unicorn, rainbow colors, fun things.
And how we can focus on the outcome if
Yeah.
we are just passionate, because the passionate can blur our view in a kind of way.
Totally.
Very important, Matt. Very important.
Oh, Matt, again, how incredible.
Yeah, it was good.
Thank you for accepting our invitation here. Speak with Brazilians. And I hope
pleasure.
you can come back. Oh, please. Sorry.
I was just going to say, this turned out to be such a well-timed conversation, because I've been like heads down working on this book, and I appreciate you making room for me to share some thoughts and progress. It was really fun.
Great.
Oh, nice. And I hope you can come back to talk about the new book again.
Absolutely. Yep. I just need to finish writing it. Small detail.
Yeah. And good luck.
Speaking of outcomes, right now I need to focus.
Yeah.
But before we finish, where can people find you, your books, and if possible, talk to you?
People can find me at mattlemay.com. That has all my contact information about the books. There's even a link to my music stuff in the bio if you look really closely. So that's probably the best place to find me these days.
Perfect. Everything will be right here in your description, and so you can connect with Matt, and good luck for that. Matt, thank you so much again. And
thank you. It was really fun.
Oh, nice.
Very good.
Nice to meet you. Yeah, it was a pleasure. So that's it.
It was recorded. Right. Thank you a lot. It was a pleasure.
Oh, this was my pleasure. Again, these are all things I've been.
Yeah. We know that.
I know. Yeah, we are in the same. Of course, maybe a little different because it's our first book. We are in the same moment to finish our book too in Brazil. We're
trying to write a book,
but we understand your moment.
It's really hard.
Yeah.
Like just making the time, it's not easy.
Yeah. So you're a champion. Your third book. So how it's
trying.
possible?
Honestly,
Great.
a lot of it is just like sheer panic. Like I run out of consulting work, and I'm just like, oh no, what am I going to do? Better write a book. So
Yeah.
again, we all have our motivations, whatever they may be.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, I agree. That's
Great. That's
Cheers.
it, Matt.
Yeah.
It's great meeting you. Yeah, keep me posted
So
when these.
yeah, I will edit the video and I can share with you and I link your name in your channels and you can ask me anything about everything about edit something. So feel free to talk to me.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
All right.
Great, Matt. See you.
Take care.
See you. Bye.
Bye.
So Buri time. What do you think?
Oh,
That's
amazing.
incredible. Well,
Amazing.
Incredible, right? Yeah.
Amazing.
I think
It's interesting because I am aware if you will have the same conversations in the next talks we have, because the first three pass for the same subject: business,
yes,
efficiency, and these other or these things that are very, very discussed on this moment we are living.
I totally agree. I think we are on the moment that everything is trying to figure it out how to fix our moment, layoffs, artificial intelligence coming.
Rethinking about the professional.
Exactly. So I think this kind of subject, it is in the right way because we are trying to figure it out. Everybody's trying to figure it out what are happening, right?
What is our part in this moment? What are we living? How can we face that, or how can we handle that? It's very interesting. And the conversation
what are you doing here?
And the conversation today was, in my opinion, very, very clear and honest. Very honest. Maybe some people cannot like so much what we talked.
Well, but feel free to disagree with us, and please comment your view about what Matt and Buriti and I brought in some way. It's very important to know
what is your point of view about this.
If you have an opposite view, it will be very important to know about it. But for me, I believe this is the reality that we are trying to not see. Oh no, let's see again user experience design. No, come on, user centric. No, come on.
In the end of the day, that it will
someone
what will you face in your job.
Someone
that is true.
We have bills to pay, so I agree with Matt. Of course, he's bringing American, right? North American view. Could be something different for us here in Brazil, but
maybe. But we are living this globalized economy, and maybe some things can not be the same thing, but can
disconnected.
Can connect, can affect some other cultures. It's important to know about other point of views.
This is a kind of cascade, right? Cascade effect. If Google in North America lay off someone, for sure this will impact here in Brazil.
Not just the act of layoffs, but
not only that.
The discussions when someone or some company decide to lay off the team. The layoff is very bad, but the discussions behind that, the motivations, this can be more discussed by us, I suppose so. And this talk today was very important for that, and for our book too, because I don't know for you, but brought me a kind of motivation. because we are finished the book too.
Oh, are you motivated?
Yeah, in
Oh,
Portuguese, but maybe if you are
in the future,
maybe English, I
Spanish
don't
and maybe
know.
English. Yeah,
I don't know.
everything could happen. Wow, amazing. I hope that this chat was so incredible for you rather than for me. So I think
Mhm.
it was amazing.
Yeah.
And please subscribe the channel, like the
Yeah,
video,
yeah, I like the video.
share,
Yeah,
and please comment that
yeah,
what I said. It's very important to know your view about your theme or subject
yeah,
here.
yeah, and your desires too. If you want to, if you
Oh
wish
yeah.
some, I don't know, some guests, some questions, some themes that you
Yeah.
would love to know more, please
So
comment
yeah,
here.
bring your reference for us. It will be very important, and we can call these people to speak with us here in Good Morning UX. So
Yes.
that's it. Thank you so much, and I see you on the next episode of everything.
Yeah, we see you.
Bye bye.
Bye.